Believe we are now live. I think we are now live. I'm here with the incredible Miss Erika Klics, and we want to chat a little bit about the power behind having your methodology, but more importantly, speaking to how to build a business that is your own and kind of breaking some of the rules in order to get there. And I think this is a really important conversation. I'm so excited to have you here. Erika, I'm going to throw it over to you to do a quick introduction and share a little bit more about you, if you will.
Sure. Yeah, I am a job search strategist for tech industry leaders, VPs, directors, startup heads, folks who are growing their careers. I was really thinking about this morning. I've been really formulating this idea of like the mission, and the mission is to really help people have more agency in their careers. And today we do that through the job search. So I'm here. I want a job to figuring out how to find your fit, market yourself, position yourself, and really build that trust with the team in order to get the job that you want. So
Love that.
that's what I do.
I love it. And she's very, very incredible at what she does. So if you're looking for that or you know somebody is, definitely I would love for you guys to send them Erika's way. But I am so excited for this conversation. And we were talking a little bit offline about this, but I think what really led us here is that you recently shared she's actually been through Sustainable Profit Academy. She's kind of phased out and in her own world implementing all the fun stuff that we've done. And I was so excited because you sent me this incredible message sharing about your success. So I'd love for you, if you're open to it, sharing a little bit about the success you saw. And then we'll kind of dive into why it didn't look how she may have planned, or what was even like the process I teach in my program, and why that's actually really important, because I think we have some barriers to break through in how we think about this. But share with us a little bit about the success you saw in making the shift and what you started to do.
Yeah. So I guess I'll go way back when, and then I'll talk about my January success specifically. Because when I first came in to work with you, I was working with people in the tech industry, and I knew I really wanted to do this up level. But I was working with mostly mid-level, senior, some leaders. I was working with basically anybody who would come to me because I was in the industry and I knew I could help them. I could help lots of people. But I knew I needed to start focusing in. And in order to focus in, really wanted to figure out the right messaging around how to activate the right people, how to find folks who were ready for the next
Yeah.
step instead of needing to be like pulled along or just needing help and not really understanding how or what they needed in the process. So that's where I started with
I
you.
love it.
We built a framework. I built a framework with your help. Went through all of your program, learned all sorts of things along the way. And then all of last year, I was probably hanging in around like 8 to 10 to 12K months,
Mhm.
where I would get a couple clients, I would book up lots of one-to-one, get stressed out. There was a point in the summertime where my kid had appendicitis, and I was
Oh,
like, I don't know what to do with all these clients because I have to serve them and it's only me and I don't I don't have time.
yeah.
And so I was growing in a really kind of stressful way. And so by the time I finished the program, all last year, basically hanging out in this place where I was seeing success. And then in December, I decided, okay, I'm going to do something for January. January is job search season. I'm going to create something a little bit different, a little bit new. I'm going to do a webinar or
Mhm.
masterclass about this thing that I've been seeing, this pattern, where if my clients do this, they book interviews in 2 weeks. So we called it 2 weeks to interviews, which we're going to run again in April because it was so successful, because it brought in our first 30K month.
Yeah.
Um, and it allowed me to see so much of more of what's possible when we did this kind of taking the framework that we built, taking all the work that I do, all the things that I've learned along the way, and changing it into new programs, new opportunities, and new ways of communicating with my people, with my audience. And yeah, and now I'm like, okay, now I see it. Now, now let's go, let's do
Yeah,
more.
sure. I know. Well, and I think you brought up so many big things in that one
I
little
know. Sorry.
thing that you do. No, like in the best way possible. Because sometimes I think when people come to me, they're like, I don't really get methodology. And I'm like, methodology is not a singular thing, right? And I think you mentioned it so much there where you were like, well, I came in wanting to speak to this elevated level of client. Usually that's why people come to me. I want better
Yeah.
clients and I want more of them. And it's like, that's like the desire you have. And then you get in and you're like, and I'm like, hey, so methodology is all of these things. And it's like, we see it, but we don't experience it and we don't really fully understand it until it starts to kind of like open up. And I think you shared that like in all the things that you were doing. And I brought you here because I really do think it's important to have these real authentic conversations around what growth and scaling really looks like that I think a lot of people don't have. Like you mentioned, I got booked out, my son had an appendicitis, and I'm sitting here like I have too many clients. Like that's the reality of growth. Like that is what truly happens. But what you were, and I remember you sending me a message and being like, Naz, I realize I need that group program. I need to build these pieces. And it wasn't like, crap, I have to go do this. It's I have methodology. My methodology is what guides my marketing. It's what guides the messaging that attracts the right person. It's the what guides me creating this offer. And I feel like that is something that because it's not a common thing, I'm the one teaching methodology. It's not a common thing that we're doing. And it exponentializes the growth that we produce, but it also accelerates it, allows us to see this bigger version of what maybe wouldn't have been as easy to find otherwise. And I'd love for you to expand a little bit upon that because one of the things that she mentioned, and we didn't go into a lot of details, she tried to create her binge bowl. Like you wrote it all out. Like you did it. You did it, girl. She had it like
I did it twice. I have two
twice.
versions.
She had it drafted, ready to go. And like she was like, it just doesn't feel like me when I'm speaking. And I think that a lot of people are used to being in containers where the person would say, I don't care, just go do it. It doesn't have to feel like you. And we had this real conversation where it's like, cool, it doesn't, if this doesn't feel good, this isn't the end all be all. And I think so many people do not understand that the success is not like a you do this and it creates this. It's very, very what's going to work for you. What do you think your market needs? And understanding those concepts. And one of the things you understood when you came to me, you're like, I had this really great month and I didn't do my binge well. I was like, awesome. And I think you thought I was going to be like, what? Why didn't you do your binge well? And I was like, cool, it doesn't really matter. And the thing you said to me in that DM was, but my methodology, I talked about my methodology and that was about it. So I'd love if you could share a little bit about like how you gravitated towards that masterclass and why you felt like that was a good fit and how integrating your methodology into that did support in creating that result.
Yeah, I think one of the things, so when you think about the job search, there's lots of different points where people can get stuck in the job search. And I was seeing over and over again that, particularly in the tech industry right now, it is hard. It's a hard place to be. But people who understand how to navigate within it and can figure it out, and figure out how to leverage their own, their experiences, their like what they've been able to do, they book interviews. And so
Yeah.
I was seeing this, the fact that, okay, cool. I was working with folks who were getting no interviews or they'd get a trickle of interviews. They'd be searching for a long time. And but when they came into me, from the time we finished their resume, because we go through a few exercises
Yeah.
first when we get to their resume, from that point, within 2 weeks, consistently, my clients were all getting interviews. And I realized like, okay, this is something that people are dealing with right now.
Right now.
It's a
Surface level.
really,
Yep.
yeah, surface level, like really clear problem. And if if I can at least speak to addressing this problem that they have right now, and then being able to talk about the bigger framework about like, this is just the first step, right? Because
Yeah.
what I was hearing from people a lot of times, look, as long as I could get in the room, I could get an offer. I'm like, well, wait, hold up. That's not exactly happening like this right now. So 2 weeks to interviews was a really like a bite-sized thing. And actually
Mm.
this was a little bit inspired by you because you also do those master classes. I was brought into one of your master classes. This is how I remember being sold on you, being like, oh, I need to work with Nas, when I forget what he was even called. It was something around finding
He was
your,
ready to invest.
yeah, that's exactly what it was. Which is because it was what I needed. It was what I
Yep.
needed in that time. So um, the reason the bingeable kept getting stuck. The bingeable kept getting stuck for me because it's not the style really that I communicate with
Yep.
my audience in. I think they probably would have consumed it just like, but I didn't feel comfortable with it.
Yeah.
And so it was hard for me. I can write in that, and I use a lot of the content and the structure of the Bingeable in my LinkedIn posts because
I
that's
love
my
it.
primary channel.
Yep.
So I used to get a ton of stuff out of that, but the Bingeable just wasn't for me. And I also realized that based on my energy and the way I like to work, I actually like launching. I
I
know
love
most
it.
people don't, but
That's
I like
okay.
doing it. So I'm like, okay, if I can figure out how to focus for like this amount of time, I got this.
Ooh.
So we're moving to a mix of like an evergreen and a launch model. Um, and and using these master classes and some of these really targeted things that folks are dealing with
Yes.
to be able to bring people in.
Well, and I think that I actually had this conversation a little bit ago inside of with some other clients inside of Sustainable Profit Academy, and we had a conversation about how people are buying has shifted, right? And I think that's a common thing that the way we purchase makes some shifts in what we do, and there's a lot of distrust and a lot of fear and a lot of things that are happening that are just natural. It's not we're not doing it wrong. It just is what it is. And I think that the reality and what we talk about, even inside the program, I don't even know if you've gotten to that part because we shifted some things on the back end, was we talk about how sometimes they need an experience. They need to feel, touch, experience your methodology and what you do firsthand, and they need to do it in a bite-sized way. And so things like workshops or master classes or things that create that interactiveness are ways that we take that methodology and apply it in a different approach and give people the opportunity to say, okay, I see this and I can feel it. And you're building that trust, you're building that authority, and you're giving them a space to be able to see for themselves. And I think that that's exactly what you did, is that you realized and recognized, whether it was consciously or subconsciously, you realized that people needed that from you. They needed both for you realized you did better in that environment, but also maybe your audience just needed that. There's people lingering. And a lot of times I tell people, especially when we look at intent, and you've heard me talk about this a million times. We talk about high intent and mid intent and how those are different people. They make purchasing decisions differently. And so while a high intent oftentimes does want something that's immediate gratification, can make decisions quickly, someone who's got mid intent can, and even high intent, but has a level of fear, needs a little bit more, needs a little bit of something that lets them feel and be a part of it. And I think you recognize that and did that for them in creating this masterclass that really solved that for them. And I want to, and I again keep bringing it back to that because I think it's so important to hear. She didn't feel comfortable in the route that we had built out. And it wasn't like, oh, too bad, so sad, that's what we're doing. It's you can create whatever the hell you want in your business. If you love launching, I have some clients who love launching, and I'm like, cool, keep launching and then build an evergreen for your high intent people and recognize that we're solving different problems. That is absolutely vital. And I think for you and I had that conversation where I was like, cool, Erika doesn't feel good. Let's reevaluate and re-look at it, how that goes. What, when it comes to the success that you've had and, some of the missteps we've had along the way, what was a big factor for you that allowed you to kind of take a step back and say, okay, this didn't work for me. Here's what I want to do instead. How do you kind of go about looking at that so you do find your own pathway and your own way to take, strategies or ideas or methods and apply them in your world? Tell us a little bit
Yeah.
about that.
So I'm in general an experimenter. I'm always like, ooh, okay, so I see it. Now I want to do it my way. So that's like inherent in me.
Love it.
um, but also I have to say it's probably not the thing most people would want to hear, but there is a little bit of a pain. There has to be some pain point along the way to say, okay,
Mhm.
I'm trying, it's not working. I'm trying, it's not working. I'm trying, it's not working. Fuck it.
Yeah. I
Like,
love
pick
it.
something else. um, and yeah, I mean, I think honestly, that's where when I think about the moments where I've had to change things up, there was definitely the hospital moment of being like, I literally can't jump on these calls right now. So how do I have to figure out how to
Mhm.
change things. Um, the it's funny because when we first started working together, the methodology part it just made everything so much easier because I'm like, okay, so how can I take components of the methodology? How can
Mhm.
I speak to this angle and that angle? How can I find the things that are working and are resonating with my audience and then evolving the ones that are not? And some of that came from like actively like needing to change or
Yeah.
needing to think, but others of it was just like, oh, I see an opportunity here to try this thing out. Or and I'll give you one more example of something that because Nas, for anybody who's watching, Nas loves to name stuff, loves to name things. And so I have lots of different like names in my code. So I was really stuck on a lot. And I am losing some of those things that we have named
Love
because
it.
they don't come out the way that I want them
Yep.
to. But one of the things has been a client experience where, okay, one of the components, it's called an experience inventory. It works. The thing is, it's the most painful part of my program. It's the thing that people, they know they need to do,
Yep.
they don't want to do it. And so right now is an example of like, okay, this is a part of my program. I know we need to do it, but also we need to change it up. So we're totally changing the exercise. We're changing how it works. We're changing
I love
like,
it.
and we're changing the messaging around it too
Yeah.
to get people more excited to figure out to like dive into it, even if it's hard. So it's things like that where I'm spotting the pain points along the way. And I've just had one too many clients be like, come to me and be like, I don't know what to do with this. So
Yeah.
now we're changing
Yeah.
um, yeah. Does that answer that? I
It
know it's a
does.
little bit.
And share with me a little bit because I think that the key thing that you and I talked about this as well is that like methodology is like that glue. It's like that central piece, that anchor you said. Like there's this anchor that allows you to like confidently make those decisions and look for and spot those opportunities. And I think that a lot of times when we're looking for ways to grow our business, it does feel very haphazard just because there's so many moving parts. But in our world, when we create the innovative gap methodology, it's pretty much like that central heart of the business where everything then expands out of from, like we said, messaging, marketing, your sales calls. Like I remember that was a conversation we had previously, to your offers, to like how you're delivering, to what's missing there. Can you share a little bit about how the methodology played a role in helping you feel more confident in making those decisions or just being able to spot those opportunities and how it anchored that for you?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean the methodology is it's interesting, right? Because it's also challenging for me. When people think about job searching, they think about write the resume,
The surface
apply for
stuff.
the jobs, do the
Yep.
interviews, answer the questions, get the offer. My whole methodology, you still have to do all that stuff. It has to, but there's like the methodology is really the underlying mindset shifts around how you approach those things.
Mm,
That totally changes the way my clients experience the job. It's how they experience their own careers. The changes kind of flips everything on its head.
yeah.
How the heck do you teach that?
And how
So
do you teach that to people who don't think they need that or don't realize
exactly.
they need that?
Exactly. So most of the work that I do is figuring out how to really show the importance of that. And so that is the root of everything. So whether it's changing an exercise, it's coming back to does this exercise, does this message, does this workshop really come back to helping them better understand
Yeah.
why this works and how this is important? And so I mean, that's the core of it. That's how it works. But and I will say the other thing that you and I talked about, which I resisted and I'm not ready for yet, but I think that there will potentially be a space for it, is this isn't just a job search
Mm-hmm.
business. This is, we're building careers here. And so how do you think about taking this methodology and applying it to people in the role, applying it to people on a path doing something different? Like there's lots of different ways to think about it, but because I have the methodology at the core, all of those things become possible now because it's all about a different way of approaching how people move through their careers, and operate within the bigger business world.
I
So
love that.
yeah.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. And I think that's a conversation that, again, we've had and I've probably had with everyone inside of my program because I think people come in and their thought process is that methodology is like a framework. Oh, I've got an offer framework. And it's like in red letters across everything that we do where I'm like, this is not your offer. This is not your offer. This is not your offer. And I think that what you mentioned was such a key core foundation of that because when we think of innovative gap methodology, it is not a practice of mechanisms. Like we've talked about that, like job search is a mechanism. It's a tool that you use to help them have careers that they're, that they're thriving in and that they're making a change in the world about. Like that is just a mechanism within it. And I think that that's a really hard concept, to wrap our brains around, because we've been taught completely the opposite when it comes to our businesses. And when I tell people like your methodology is not based in that. And I even like had a client who, when she joined Sustainable Profit Academy recently, I was like, this thing that you do with your clients, that is a mechanism, but realistically, your methodology is actually helping achieve this much bigger concept. Like you were talking about, like being able to leave a mark on the world for a while. We were talking about how that really is the key. And a job search and all the things that we do, resumes, those are just functions. They're all mechanisms within it, but there is this bigger purpose behind it. And that's the power behind methodology, is that it's not an offer. It's not, oh, I can only do it this way. And like you mentioned, it gives us this space to be able to expand, to contract, to move, to shift, to do all of those things, as a result of having this anchor piece that builds all of that. And I think a lot of times it's hard to wrap our heads. And even if you're not there yet and you're like, I know that I can grow into that, that in and of itself to me is so powerful, to know and see the possibilities and the opportunities of how big you can expand. And we have these conversations where I say, I want you to think bigger. I want you to think of, like, if I'm on the cover of Forbes magazine, what am I known for? And it's not, I have this job search process. It's, I have this completely different way of how we look at our careers and how we leave our mark through the things that we do in that career. So I really love that you kind of brought that up, because I do think that's such a huge thing for you. And we'll kind of end on this for you, when you look at that ability to shift and grow into, like you mentioned, like, I'm not there yet, but I know that that's where I can go. What doors does that open for you, understanding and acknowledging you have this bigger path that you can grow into? How do you see yourself growing into that? And how do you feel that allows you the space to be able to grow as you add pieces or learn new things, or evolve in your learning?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because right now it really gives me a lot of confidence in doubling down on what I'm doing. Be like, I have clarity on what I'm doing. I have so much more opportunity to serve my people in this way, and like create offers that align with that so that they can get what they need. And so a lot of what I've been up to has just been experimenting with, okay, so what is the offer that makes sense, that gets them all three components
Yeah.
of this, with of my methodology, with clarity and with confidence, and like so that they can feel like they're actually getting what they need. But also, I was just in the car thinking about, okay, so like I know for me, my mission is supporting those people who want to grow their personally in their careers, and like
Mm,
they want more. It's
yep.
always about the wanting more. There's a hunger that my people have, and I want to help them support it. And I want to help them feed that hunger with their careers. So today that's job searching. I think it will continue to be job searching because I believe in the flexibility of you like moving through the market that way.
Yep.
But how do you prepare yourself for that? How, once you land in a role, how do you think ahead? Like it
Yes.
really becomes a lot more about people owning their own direction and people owning their own career, which is something that I just don't think exists in the market today.
Yeah.
Um, but they need, and I want to give it to them. So that's
I
why.
love that. I love that. And I love that you've been able to kind of see that for yourself and see those opportunities. So I want to kind of end on just sharing with you guys all. Like I said, I brought Erika here because I wanted you guys to see and understand that growth is never linear. It's never one size fits all. And I really do believe in that. And I know that Erika, you believe in that with your clients when you're working with them. And I really, if you were to leave our audience with like one line on when it comes to looking at their success and feeling like, okay, I have to do it a certain way, what would you leave people with saying when it comes to actually what success looks like, or what they really should be looking at? If you have one line or a little last thought to leave with us.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, there's just no one right way to do it as the clearest, and there's the two biggest factors I think are what you need, but really more than that, it's like what do your people need? What does your
Mhm.
audience need? Like that is how you create a business that's going to actually grow. Instead of trying to like stick the square head peg into the
Like,
circle hole over and over and over again, which is I'm sure we've all done it. I've continued to do it sometimes, and then I'm like, wait a minute, oh.
I love it. I love it. Well, thank you so much for sharing that with us. And for those of you who are listening, if you want to learn a little bit more about Erika, she'll share where you can find out more if you're looking to take that next step, whether that's for you, for a spouse, for someone else. Erika, where can we learn a little bit more about what you do?
Yeah, I'm erikaklics.com and you can find me on LinkedIn. I am the only Erika Klics around. My Instagram is totally dormant. Don't go there. Maybe someday, but not for today.
Not necessary, totally not
Yeah.
necessary. And for those of you who are listening, if you want to learn a little bit more about the Easy Yes method and how we actually develop that innovative gap methodology that kind of gives the anchor to your business and creates that exponential growth so that you can take your business to the next level and really create what you want, head on over to easyesleads.com to check out our mini series where we break this down. But until next time, thank you so much for being here. And thank you, Erika, for your time being with us here today.
Thank you. Talk to you soon.